Now come days of begging, days of theft, days of riding where there rode no soul save he. He's left behind the pinewood country, and the evening sun declines before him beyond an endless swale. Dark falls here like a thunderclap, and a cold wind sets the weeds to gnashing. The night sky lies so sprent with stars that there is scarcely space of black at all, and they fall all night in bitter arcs. And it is so that their numbers are no less. He keeps from off the king's road for fear of citizenry. The little prairie, wolves cry all night, and dawn finds him in a grassy draw where he'd gone to hide from the wind. The hobbled mule stands over him and watches the east for light. The sun that rises is the color of steel. His mounted shadow falls for miles before him. He wears on his head a hat he's made from leaves, and they have dried and cracked in the sun. And he looks like a ragged man wandered from some garden where he'd used to frighten birds. Come evening, he tracks a spire of smoke rising oblique from among the low hills, and before dark, he hails up at the doorway of an old anchorite nested away in the sod like a ground sloth. Solitary, half mad, his eyes red-rimmed, as if locked in their cages with hot wires, but a ponderable body for that. He watched wordless, while the kid eased down stiffly from the mule. A rough wind was blowing, and his rags flapped about him. "Seen the smoke," said the kid. "Thought you might spare a man a sup of water?" The old hermit scratched in his filthy hair and looked at the ground. He turned and entered the hut, and the kid followed. Inside, darkness and a smell of earth. A small fire burned on the dirt floor, and the only furnishings were a pile of hides in one corner. The old man shuffled through the gloom, his head bent to clear the low ceiling of woven limbs and mud. He pointed down to where a bucket stood, in the dirt. The kid bent and took up the gourd floating there and dipped and drank. The water was salty, sulphurous. He drank on. "You reckon I could water my old mule out there?" The old man began to beat his palm with one fist and dart his eyes about. "Be proud to fetch in some fresh jets. Tell me where it's at, what ye aim to water him with." The kid looked at the bucket, and he looked around in the dim hut. "I ain't drinking after no mule," said the hermit. "Have you not got no old bucket, nor nothin'?" "No," cried the hermit. "No, I ain't." He was clapping the heels of his clenched fists together at his chest. The kid rose and looked toward the door. "I'll find something," he said. "Where's the well at?" "Up the hill, follow the path. It's nigh too dark to see out here. It's a deep path. Follow the feet, follow the mule." "I can't go." He stepped out into the wind and looked about for the mule, but the mule wasn't there. Far to the south, lightning flared soundlessly. He went up the path among the thrashing weeds and found the mule standing at the well, a hole in the sand with rocks piled about it, a piece of dry hide for a cover and a stone to weight it down. There was a rawhide bucket with a rawhide bail and a rope of greasy leather. The bucket had a rock tied to the bail to help it tip and fill, and he lowered it until the rope in his hand went slack while the mule watched over his shoulder. He drew up 3 bucketfuls and held them so the mule would not spill them, and then he put the cover back over the well and led the mule back down the path to the hut. "I thank thee for the water," he called. The hermit appeared darkly in the door. "Just stay with me," he said. "That's all right. Best stay. It's fixing to storm. You reckon?" "I reckon, and I reckon right." "Well, bring ye bed. Bring the possibles." He uncinched and threw down the saddle and hobbled the mule foreleg to rear and took his bedroll in. There was no light save the fire, and the old man was squatting by it. Anywheres, he said. Where's the saddle at? The kid gestured with his chin. Don't leave it out yonder. Something'll eat it. This is a hungry country. He went out and ran into the mule in the dark. It had been standing, looking in at the fire. Get away, fool, he said. He took up the saddle and went back in. Now pull that door to, for we blow away, said the old man. The door was a mass of planks on leather hinges. He dragged it across the dirt and fastened it by its leather latch. I take it ye lost your way, said the hermit. No, I went right to it. He waved quickly with his hand. The old man. No, he said. I mean ye was lost too, of come here. Was they a sandstorm? Did the drift off the road in the night? Did thieves beset the kid pondered this? Yes, he said. We got off the road some ways or another. Knowed ye did. How long you been out here? Out where? The kid was sitting on his blanket roll across the fire from the old man. Here, he said. In this place. The old man didn't answer. He turned, his head suddenly aside, and seized his nose between his thumb and forefinger and blew twin strings of snot onto the floor and wiped his fingers on the seam of his jeans. I come from Mississippi. I was a slaver. Don't care to tell it. Made good money. I never did get caught. Just got sick of it. Sick of niggers. Wait till I show this something. He turned and rummaged among the hides and handed through the flames a small dark thing. The kid turned it in his hand. Some man's heart, dried and blackened. He passed it back, and the old man cradled it in his palm as if he'd weigh it. There is 4 things that can destroy the earth, he said. Women, whiskey, money, and niggers. They sat in silence. The wind moaned in the section of stovepipe that was run through the roof above them to quit the place of smoke. After a while, the old man put the heart away. That thing costed me $200, he said. You give $200 for it. I did, for that was the price they put on the black son of a bitch it hung inside of. He stirred about in the corner and came up with an old dark brass kettle, lifted the cover, and poked inside with one finger. The remains of one of the lank prairie hares interred in cold grease and furred with a light blue mold. He clamped the lid back on the kettle and set it in the flames. Ain't much, but we'll go shares, he said. I think the app lost away in the dark, said the old man. He stirred the fire, standing slender tusks of bone up out of the ashes. The kid didn't answer. The old man swung his head back and forth. The way of the transgressor is hard. God made this world, but he didn't make it to suit everybody, did he? I don't believe he much had me in mind. Aye, said the old man. But where does a man come by his notions? What world's he seen that he liked better? I can think of better places and better ways. Can the make it be? No, it's a mystery. A man's at odds to know his mind, 'cause his mind is aught he has to know it with. He can know his heart, but he don't want to. Rightly so. Best not to look in there. It ain't the heart of a creature that is bound in the way that God has set for it. You can find meanness in the least of creatures, but when God made man, the devil was at his elbow, a creature that can do anything. Make a machine, and a machine to make the machine, and evil that can run itself 1,000 years. No need to tend it. You believe that? I don't know. Believe that. When the old man's mess was warmed, he doled it out, and they ate in silence. Thunder was moving north, and before long, it was booming overhead and starting bits of rust in a thin trickle down the stovepipe. They hunkered over their plates and wiped the grease up with their fingers and drank from the gourd. The kid went out and scoured his cup and plate in the sand and came back banging the tins together, as if to fend away some dry gulch phantom out there in the dark. Distant thunderheads reared quivering against the electric sky and were sucked away in the blackness again. The old man sat with one ear cocked to the howling waste without. The kid shut the door. "Don't have no baka with thee, do thee?" "No, I ain't," said the kid. "Didn't allow that, did. You reckon it'll rain? It's got ever opportunity. Likely it won't." The kid watched the fire. Already he was nodding. Finally, he raised up and shook his head. The hermit watched him over the dying flames. "Just go on and fix the bed," he said. He did, spreading his blankets on the packed mud and pulling off his stinking boots. The flue pipe moaned, and he heard the mule stamp and snuffle outside, and in his sleep, he struggled and muttered like a dreaming dog. He woke sometime in the night with the hut in almost total darkness, and the hermit bent over him, and all but in his. "Bait, what do you want?" he said. But the hermit crawled away, and in the morning, when he woke, the hut was empty, and he got his things and left. All that day he watched to the north, a thin line of dust. It seemed not to move at all, and it was late evening before he could see that it was headed his way. He passed through a forest of live oak, and he watered at a stream and moved on in the dusk and made a fireless camp. Birds woke him where he lay in a dry and dusty wood.